live. And hope you're doing well, Laura. We've had a little while to connect with each other. So we will now go to the approval. Oh, wait, before I do that. So you guys just hit the record button. And just have to announce that as a reminder, the meeting is being recorded. By participating in the meeting, you're acknowledging your consent to be recorded. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Education Subcommittee of the Wachusett Regional School District Committee is being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The meeting is being recorded and will be rebroadcast. As a reminder to the Education Subcommittee members, please do not use the chat feature unless absolutely necessary. If something is in the chat, it will need to be read so it can be in the minutes. And just so the viewing audience knows who is in this meeting and is participating, I'll make that announcement at this point. So we have Dr. Brendan Keenan, who's the Director of Social Emotional Learning and Guidance for the district. We have member Bob Ipper. We have Megan Keller, who is a member of the WREA. We have Deputy Superintendent Verlo, and we have member Deirdre Shapiro. We have member Linda Long-Balil, member Laura Kirschenbaum, and then myself, Dr. Christina Smith, in the meeting. All right, so the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from July 27th, 2020 meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to accept. Entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I'll give you a minute, and then if we have discussion of the minutes, we can see if there's anything that we need to discuss. Okay. Does anyone need more time? Probably had a little bit of time. Okay. So we do have to do the roll call vote for the, does anyone have anything they want to discuss about the minutes? No? Okay. So seeing none, we'll move on to a roll call vote. So we have, and I'm going to use first names if that's okay. Bob?
Ember, yes.
Okay. Laura? Yes, okay. She's nodding yes, we'll say yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Linda?
Yes.
Deirdre?
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so the minutes are accepted. Okay. Did I do that correctly? What I missed? Bob, Bob Ember, you're my, Bob and Bob, both are my check on my procedure, because that's a weak area for me. My husband told me I needed to get a book. So I don't have time to read that book right now. So
They have cheat notes. They have cheat notes.
Yes, yeah, I'll have to print that out, print out some cheat notes. Okay, so tonight we have some policies. If you remember last meeting, we were looking at policies and reviewing them in relation to what we needed to do under COVID-19. Bob Berlo, I'll ask, do you want us, do you want to do old business first? Do we want to ask if you want to take that out of order at this time in the evening, or do we want to go with a couple policies? What do you think from the administration's point of view?
Maybe we could do the old business first here, and then we could jump into the policies if we have some time left.
Okay. Does anyone object to taking things out of order and going to old business at this point? Okay. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Bob because he has an old business item that he wanted to address.
Yeah, a few meetings back, many months back, I would say probably, Bob Ember had asked me to come up with an update on our plans around COVID-19 and to provide the committee with an update. And seeing at the last meeting how there were specific questions around, is there a plan? Can we review a plan? I thought that maybe that would be the appropriate update, would be to go over where we are at this point in our planning process. So I sent out an email to folks with an attachment to a couple of different plans, one for a high school, a middle school, an elementary plan. And so I thought I could kind of go through that and maybe we could ask some questions. And I'm looking for feedback as well, so it might be a timely thing for us to do. I'm going to start with the one that deals with the high school first.
And as you said, Bob, did you say they're shared with us? Is that what you said?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're in our email. Okay.
Yep. So if you could check through email, you can click on that and we could kind of work our way through, and you could ask maybe some questions. We could look at different sections. Some of the verbiage will be the same from plan to plan. Some of it does change slightly. Obviously, schedules and things change quite a bit, but I could give you a general overview on where we are at this point in time. These are still drafty. By that I mean there are groups of people working on all three of these plans. The other thing I need to make everybody aware of is we still need to have the opportunity to sit with the association to kind of go through this with them and to bargain over some of these things. So right now, this is strictly a draft. I'm just looking for feedback from you in terms of what you might want to talk about here.
Bob, is it the copy of WRSD Online Education HS invitation to edit? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Got it. All right. Oh, trying to open it up. There we go. Yeah. I see it.
So I see Linda, Christina, you're in here. Bob, I see you're in here.
Mm-hmm.
Deidre and Laura, and Brendan. So I think we're good to go. All of them begin with just sort of a general premise at the beginning as to what we're doing here, and that's sort of that opening paragraph. Under the overview, we tie in the fact that we've reviewed feedback from our constituents, and that means teachers, students, and parents in terms of how to make this a better process than what we were doing in the springtime. And so all of that was used and is continued to be used. Even this morning, we received some more feedback from the middle school teachers, for instance. So we're looking to incorporate as much of that as we can into this. So that's what I also mean by drafty here. There's a few things that we really felt we needed to concentrate on and make different. One was the fact that parents, by and large, I would say the most common comment was that we have a common schedule in place where students are expected to be in at this time to cover this subject, and that teachers are talking to students live at that time. It's not something where they're doing work remotely without some teacher direction there. Questions or comments? What we also heard, if I'm moving down, go ahead.
I have some questions actually. Sure. And I have to admit I haven't had a long time to digest this, so
Absolutely.
it's just
Yes, I completely agree.
Glances. So please excuse me if I'm a little scattershot.
That's all right.
I'm thinking about some of the feedback we've been getting from our constituents with regard to some of my questions as I'm going here. If I scroll down to the schedule, and I apologize if this is way too detailed at this point, you can just tell me to slow my roll. That's totally fine.
Sure.
The daily schedule, it looks like you're
We're on the bottom of page 6.
Yep, page 6. It looks like we're looking at 40-minute classes or 50-minute classes. I can't do the math right now.
These end up being 45-minute classes here in most cases. In some cases, they're 50. And by drafty, I mean we're still trying to finesse this. My goal was to not have this be your typical high school schedule where it's very unique and there's strange amounts of times for things. I wanted it because kids are going to be home 50 or 55 minutes, and that's just a block and it doesn't change. So this is still in the process of going back and forth. So this isn't the done deal by any point.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the time on learning. Looks like 4 classes a day. That may be, I wonder if that's difficult to navigate. If transitions will be tough coming out of one FaceTime meeting and going into another. If students will have trouble navigating that, or teachers will, I'm just hesitant. I just want to offer that feedback that might be something to look at.
Yeah, we've discussed that, Laura. So we're caught twixt and twain, and by that I mean we're trying to give something that makes sense for kids at home, and also for parents with the younger kids at home. And the other challenge that we're having is the fact that we're being told by the Department of Education that we still have to meet time on learning goals. And the initial conversation that I had with someone from the Department of Ed was the fact that you got to get darn close to that. We're not going to give you a waiver if you're hundreds of hours off. You got to get darn close to that. So we're trying to get in the ballpark of what they're saying. For the high school, we have to be close to 935 hours. So
do they have a guide? I don't recall seeing this, a guide on how much of that time should be synchronous and how much of that time would be asynchronous. And
no, they don't specify minutes, but what they do specify is you need to say it's this type of learning in order for it to count. So if it's asynchronous, for instance, the afternoon period here, the partial portion of this schedule where it says online help and support, we have to have that listed there. I might have to change what the name of that is actually called, but that's allowed to be. You have to actually be having sessions with students. It just can't be office hours, for instance, where kids could possibly call in. It has to be something where there's actually structured time with kids. So, and the other thing, for instance, we couldn't take everybody's prep period. You're covering for a teacher during the day while they're teaching, and then you also provide them with a preparation period. We couldn't say every teacher's prep period is right after lunch across the board because no students would be involved. I couldn't count that time. The teacher prep periods have to be embedded in this during the day. Hence, you need to have so many periods during the day in order to cover that. Because if a teacher's off, the kids have to go under someone else's watch then.
So I have a couple. Yeah.
Go ahead, Deirdre.
Yeah. So just looking at the schedule again for the first time right now. But I also am concerned about the amount of time that you have between the periods because of so a little background about me. I'm an online educator. I've been teaching online classes in the private sector for about 20 years. So one of the things that we tell people one of the things that we try not to do is to make an online class longer than 45 minutes. And that's what we do for adults. Okay, these are self-paced online courses. If we have a webinar, we say it could go 50 minutes, it could go an hour, but you would never really go longer than an hour. And what we're really looking at here is a schedule that goes from like 8:20 till 11:55 nonstop. And that's a long time for an adult to sit. And so when we're talking about high school students, I mean, if someone has to get up and go to the bathroom, they have like 5 minutes, and so I think that there does need to be more time in between. If for bathroom breaks, mental transition alone, just like, okay, I was just learning math, now I'm going to learn, like now I'm going into my history class. These things happen live when you're walking down the hallway. They physically get up and move down the hallway at high school. So those things happen when you're physical, but when you're sitting in front of the computer like this, you're expecting them to log off, log on. There's no technical issues, best case scenario, and stuff like that. I just think that really 5 minutes between periods is really, really rough on, again, what we would say would be best practice for an online course. We would not do it this way. So
yeah, and I appreciate that feedback. Let me maybe tell you a little bit about our end here. So the thing we're wrestling with on the end on extending the day is there's a bound time in the teacher contract. So the day can only be so long. So if I'm trying to make time on learning goals, I can't extend the day even by 10 minutes. I have to have it be within the teacher's bound contract. We have so many courses that we need to get in at the high school. But
how does this compare to, I mean, are they really making it to their class in 5 minutes at the high school between the bells? I know the size of high school. I've walked that high school, and I've heard my high schooler complain about how it's hard to get to class sometimes. But I'm suspecting that it's because the high school is huge and he's saying hello to all of his friends on the way. So, like, is there really 5 minutes between a bell? I mean, is that I'm just wondering why it's not fitting. Is it because we're starting at 8:20 instead of 7:20? Don't they usually start at 7:20
So
at the high
a
school?
whole bunch of thoughts here. So let me respond to a few of them. We're trying to get it so that we would start our online program pretty much the same time for all the different grade spans here. And the reasoning is that it would be consistent end of the day. We can get custodians to be in and we can set expectations about, because if people are in the building, if people are coming in to participate in this online courses because they don't have access at home, or if teachers are more comfortable working out of the building, let's say, and they're in the buildings working on this, we need to be able to clean it. We also wanted to set it up so that on Wednesday is a half day, we would have the same time that people are released from their instructional requirements on that day, and we could do more high quality professional development rather than the high school gets out at this time, the elementaries get out at that time. So what ends up happening with this whole plan, high school starts later, elementary start a little earlier, and we're kind of, we're pushing a little bit on both ends there. This would not be the plan if we get back into school. They would have more traditional schedules. And everybody's aware of that. Everybody's on board with that internally on how we would make all that happen. This is for us working remotely and getting small groups in the building. But if we throw the switch and say, all right, now we're starting with that cohort A and a cohort B, and all the kids are going to be in for 2 days and then out, they would have a slightly different schedule than this. And that's everybody. Go ahead.
Ask a question about, well, one of the, just a commentary. I think too, you're not expecting that kids are going to sit in front of the computer for the whole 45 minutes, right? Like they might start off with a 15-minute or 20-minute lead from the teacher interaction. The teacher might then break out a breakout room with a couple kids, but other kids do independent work off screen and then check back the next day. Is that sort of the model too that we're thinking about? So it wouldn't be the 4 hours of computer time.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Thanks for recentering me on that one. That's absolutely the case, and that's what we're looking to do. Maybe if you put on your hat as an elementary teacher, you would start a lesson whole group, introduce something new, and then you'd give the kids something to do, and they could break out into smaller groups. In the new version of Google Classroom we have, there are breakout rooms in there. Or that kids could maybe disconnect while they read and write, and then they get back in after they've composed their thoughts. The other thing is, in the high school, if maybe you put that hat on for a minute, we deliver the content, and then we provide the students with opportunities to practice or to start working on assignments, those types of things. We could provide support where it's needed. Other kids could disconnect because they've essentially got what they needed. It's not like we'll be teaching wall to wall and give the kids just a few minutes here. When the high school, we were adding up all these minutes, and they saw that they weren't quite there in terms of the time. I mean, I wasn't really pushing this. One of the things that was offered, though, was, well, let's get rid of this 5 minutes in between, and we'll just go to, once one ends, another one starts, and that sort of thing. So the high school isn't quite feeling that this is a large thing, but I do understand best practice, and that's what you're speaking to, Deidre. So,
what is the activity period?
We don't know. It won't be called that ultimately, but to get people in the high school to start to discuss it, Bill said they know what an activity period is because we use it. What we're trying to do is this. We're trying to interject some time where we could do a couple of different things. We could be in smaller groups. The teachers could connect with smaller groups of kids on a more personal level. How's this going? Are you having some trouble? And then they could source help for the kids if it was tech help or support, or maybe from guidance because there's some issues going on, or from a nurse or any of that stuff. So that's what we're looking to do with that. Right now, that's just a placeholder called activity period. This isn't the first draft, but I would say we're maybe 2 away from a final draft. So this is where we're at this point in time.
And Bob, did you want us, when we have more time to take a look at it, did you,
Yep.
Sorry if you already said this, my mind is I'm at the end of the day here.
Yep.
Would we be able to write comments on the side? Like if I didn't ask you the question about activity period right now and I was curious, would I write, could you please explain activity period?
Yeah.
Or would you rather not do that?
No, I want you guys, that's why I gave you a copy, so I'll know where this is coming from. So all you have to do is highlight the words, and then on the side, you can add a comment, and then you can, leave anything in there. You could say, what is this? You could say, could you reword this way? My constituent sent me a request for blah, blah, blah. Could we fit that in here? So you can do all that stuff. I can respond to your comments when you leave them. Whatever we do. I can also, or you could, once you figure the conversation's done, we can resolve it by clicking on mark as resolved, and it just goes away. So it's a way for us to have an offline conversation. You could set questions up that we could answer at the next meeting, is what I want to say.
So we put our questions in, and then on our Monday meeting, this is where you'd address them.
Yeah.
So we just, when we have more time to digest between now and Monday, the committee's asked to put comments in, or comment/question, and then Bob and Brendan can address them on Monday for us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do our work. We'll do our work, which is answering and responding to your questions at the meeting. Yep. So if we could, I just wanted you to get the lay of the land of how this is organized. And I know we took a splash and jumped down there. So on the bottom of page 1, I just want to walk you through some of these things. I don't have to spend a great deal of time, just so you kind of understand the layout here. We had some requests from parents as well, asking us, could we be more specific in what's in an online lesson? Because they saw a lot of variability between maybe one teacher and another. So what we tried to come up with here is a bulleted list of what we would expect to be in all online lessons. And so that's what's under that section called components of an online lesson. We gave each department an opportunity to talk about some very general goals for what they're doing in their departments. And this is still being worked on, but there's the beginnings of it are in there. That's probably a little more than half done, maybe 2/3 done. Attendance, we are required to take a daily attendance, or in the high school, it'll be period attendance. So there'll be attendance by each course for students, and we need them to understand that, and parents to understand that. And essentially, the policy that's followed, or the procedure that's followed, is right from the student handbook. So it's just like we were in school, except they'll be taking attendance by the kids checking in online. And what's important is that students need to, if they're not able to participate in an online course, and I'll highlight a section here, we wanted parents to understand that there is an opportunity, like internet was down, my power was down and just came on a few hours ago. I thought I was going to drive back to school to be part of this meeting tonight, but luckily I'm at home. If something like that happens and I can't meet my 9:33 class or whatever time it starts, we would then get in touch with the teacher after the fact, and the teachers are going to record some video and have it available for students and that type of thing. So there's a way to sort of work around that and to meet any problems, that might occur in a family. Or maybe grandma gets sick and we have to bring her to the hospital, and I'm driving all my kids in the van and we're going to go get her, and she's off to the hospital, but we're going to miss that morning's classes. When I come back, we're all set, and now we'll do our day's work, and so that they can still contact the teacher and make it work.
I have a question about, so that's for like attendance by each class period. Will there also be attendance taken? I'm thinking, like, say a kid has, I don't know, they're just not feeling well and can't do classes for the day, like a regular sick day they might take. Would they call into the school like we've done in the past, so that can be marked in Power School automatically?
Yep. And so rather than having a document here that might get unwieldy because of the length of it, what we would refer to is, this is anything that's specific, just online specific. Other than that, you refer to the student handbook, and all that's detailed in there. It tells you what to do, what by what time, all that sort of stuff, to call in. Here's the number, all those types of things. So same thing for adults. We will change this slightly for teachers. There'll be a few more details in here for teachers, but other than that, they would follow the employee handbook. those types of things. So how do you report an absent? What do you do if this happens? What if you have to request this? So that will still fall back on a lot of those already established procedures that we have in play.
Okay. Bob Imber has a question for you.
So are these sessions recorded, and will anybody be assessing sort of the quality of what's going on in classrooms?
Yeah, that'll be in the principal's hand, that, Bob, and how official that quality control is will be based on where we end up with the guidance from the governor and the DESE on the whole teacher evaluation system. But just to get us going out of the chute, there will be principals able to check in and see what's going on into different Google Classrooms. Does
that require modification of the contract, or how does that work?
I'm not quite sure, Bob. I'm not quite sure. So that's where we'd have to look at the contract. And then if it does, we'd absolutely have to enter into conversations with the union. So what I'm saying is we have intentions. Can we execute those intentions? It would have to be based on where we end up with our negotiations. So that's all I'm speaking to tonight is intentions. I'm not saying any of this is set in stone or we're absolutely doing any of this stuff. So just to make that clear to everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. For assignment, yeah, and was there a question? Yeah.
Yeah, this is Deidre. Hi. So when you mentioned recording the classes, is there a concern about teachers recording students as far as as far as permission and everything like that, as far as privacy, as far as I know that was kind of something that came up, especially with the special needs students, even just having classes at home. I mean, in the sense that parents were hearing other students and there was a disclosure of privacy there. But I think it's more of a concern where here we've all given permission to be recorded and we are adults. We're talking about minors who can't actually give that permission.
Yeah, and so what we're talking about here might not be recording a meeting. What we're talking about might be me recording myself delivering a lesson, and there could be kids that are in a meeting behind the scenes, but we're talking about me through a different piece of software like Screencastify or something like that. I'm recording myself, and so that's all the kid would be able to watch is that.
Okay.
That's a very good point you're making.
Yeah, that might have to be specified here because so this is a document that's going to go out to parents as well as the teachers, I'm assuming.
We would probably have a slightly different version for teachers where we'd have more details on all these things. So
yeah, I think that might want to be spelled out when we talk about recording classes. It needs to be a little more specific because I think you're going to have parents ask the question that I just asked. What do you mean you're going to record my kid? That kind of a thing. So I don't know how you want to word it because I haven't really had a chance to look at all that, but I think it needs to go in there somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I'll add a comment at the top, and you can certainly add a comment at any time.
Oh, I'm just adding one for you, Bob. I just writing specify what recorded video is. So just because you might put would be a Screencastify or something, or I don't know.
Right. That sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We also, what's different between this and what we did in the spring is assignments there. We asked to be not graded. We asked to come up with feedback for kids. In the end, we ended up with grades being approaching standards or not approaching, or making progress or not making progress. There were very vague terms, pass, fail in the high school. And what we're doing now is we're reverting to our previous way of grading while we're working through this remote learning process here. So that's what's essentially happening. So assignments may be graded and they may not, and that could depend on the school, on the grade level, or on the assignment. So some of our schools, for instance, have a more firm policy about not grading practice work. However, if I'm now have mastered how to do an introductory paragraph, let's just say, and me and two other people are getting together, and we're now doing this work collaboratively, and it might take a night or two, it could be graded, or I could receive feedback on it, those types of things. So that's what's different here.
But there would be some graded assignments for all classes, right?
Yep,
Okay. All right.
absolutely.
Okay, good.
We've opened that back up, so we're back in that vein again. I had to use generic enough language here because we have different practices in different schools and grade levels, so, and in different subjects in terms of the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In terms of placement, there's been, as you could well imagine, there's been an awful lot of reaching out to principals around, please put my kid in this class so that blah, 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 and all these things. So this is just a statement around placement. It's going to be at the discretion of the principals. We just have to have that happen. So in terms of the high school, they'll do their best to get students into certain courses. We'll just have to ultimately make it work based on the number of kids that sign up. For instance, if not enough kids signed up for a particular course, it might not run, and therefore we put kids into another course. So that's essentially in the high school. And middle and elementary, it's at the discretion of the principal ultimately.
Bob, I don't know if this is too specific of a question about the high school. I'm thinking of like a course, like a PE course, like a project adventure, which you need the course for. Like, would that be something that maybe wouldn't run just because kids wouldn't be able to access the course? And even if they were in hybrid, I don't know if it would be safe equipment wise, or would that kind of class still run? Would there be a sub, or is that still kind of in the works as they're looking at scheduling?
Yeah, that's a great question. And maybe we could use a band as an example. So even if what they're telling us about any instrument that you blow into that could make those viruses go much further coming out of that instrument, they need to be at least 20 to 24 feet apart, each kid. So
wow.
If you think of a band class where we typically have 50 to 100 kids in there, you couldn't even spread them out on a football field that wide. So in some cases, if a teacher is not able to come up with a way to have those kids safely integrate or participate remotely, then you're right, Christine. We'd just have to not run that class, or we'd have to modify it to an extent that maybe it's a different experience and kids might not want it. So for instance, this isn't happening, but let me just use that example. If in that band class, it went from band where you're actually practicing and working with other kids and learning music, it turned into some sort of music theory or theory of marching music or something. Kids might say, that's not what I want to take, you know? So it could be that there'll be a little back and forth with kids and families too, in terms of, here's how the class has been modified, do you still want to take it? There's not a lot of time left, and there'll be a lot of communication that happens. So these are things that we're in some ways grateful that we get those extra 10 days at the beginning of the year to kind of straighten out some of these last minute changes that are definitely going to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, though the question though about gym was good for the high school because it is a requirement for graduation. Is that going to be waived, kind of like the MCASs are kind of waived, you know, at this point? Because kids might miss a whole year of their gym requirement. And I think they're supposed to have, I think, I don't know exactly how it was, but I remember my son had to take it off for years, at least half year.
So in terms of the courses that the kids need to graduate, we're not modifying that at all. So in that case, it's going to be up to the teacher to modify what the kids are expected to do and how they'll sort of interact. When we're remote, it probably would be some opportunities for kids to explain how they did this or that, or to show a video, or to discuss, or something like that. It won't necessarily be them all throwing the ball to each other.
No.
When we get face to face, the part of that that's a little bit challenging is going to be the touching of by more than one kid of the same equipment. So just think of throwing a baseball back and forth. Well, if I sneeze on my hand and I throw it to you and you catch it, as soon as you pull it out of the glove, it's on your hand now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we'll have to have some different conversations about when we come back together. And that was part of what I think I was intending to say the other night, and maybe I wasn't that clear. We have to be physically ready to do these types of things. So we have to think through activities, just in phys ed, like Well, how would you modify that then? How would you ensure that kids are safe? You can't have kids washing their hands every time they touch a ball because, it just becomes ridiculous. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to talk that all through. These are great questions. And this is a very similar meeting, by the way, to the ones I've been having with the principals. We sit there, we talk, and they're like, well, let me get back to you in a week or in a few days, or let's get back together next week. I got to think about that one. So expectations.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
jump in here with a question?
Absolutely.
A couple of points here. Not to belabor the issue, but I think that when it comes to pre-recording instructional material, if teachers are so inclined to do that, and push that out for students, if they're going to do some sort of flipped classroom where you watch the instruction and then you come into the synchronous time to do the practice and the work so that teachers can troubleshoot. I would like to see some clarity in that so that we can all make sure that we're on the same page. If teachers are going to be providing the instruction synchronously in a class, versus if they're going to be pushing out some sort of instructional video pre-recorded and then doing the practice. I'm open to whatever plan, but I would like to make sure that it's clear what is synchronous and what is not, what is asynchronous, so that we can maximize the synchronous time with the students,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can communicate effectively to our constituents and reassure them that what they're going to be getting online is robust and helpful. We've heard some parents say that they couldn't help the kids at home because they're not teachers, they don't know the content. If material is pre-recorded, then they can look at it with the kids, at their leisure and be able to jump in there too to provide some help. So regarding that, I know that's a lot that I just put out there, but I think that that's something that would benefit all of us to be able to clarify. And then also regarding grading, ensuring, and I understand that it's going to vary a little bit from building to building and grade level to grade level, but making sure that we can clearly articulate that it's not just a pass fail, that it's not just participation and attendance, but it's a focus on work completion and work proficiency, mastery of material, that is the guide for their grading. I think those would be two things that could ensure that parents are understanding that this is not the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Laura, if I could just summarize a little bit of what you said, just because I'm writing a comment about it. It sounded like, and you said a lot, which is very helpful, but I'm gonna break it down to just what I think I'm hearing you say is there's a desire for live time with teachers every day, every period, some bit of live time. Is that sort of what you're asking?
I'm saying, yeah, I think live time, whether it be instructional time or work time, maybe not every class every day, but when those classes do meet, that it's clear what that meeting is going to accomplish.
Okay, and that sort of goes to what Bob said, like each class would need to have these items in them. So I'm going to just put a general comment, Bob, and you've heard the conversation. It just says desire for live time with teachers at some level each day, and I'll put / period. Because I think that's something I've been hearing as well, that I know it is that, and if we're meeting these 907, I know it's something you'll need to negotiate as far as like time and such, maybe, I don't know. But like, if we need that instructional time and we're moving curriculum forward, there has to be those connections, that constant progress forward. So I also think in hearing from constituents and the backlash against the remote of spring, we're looking for something different. We need something different, and that involves whether it's probably working with whole class, small groups, something that there's instruction going on during those periods. So I'm just going to put that general comment, that you've heard all this conversation from Laura and me and Linda, did you want to add into that? Like,
Well, just I just want to clarify, going back to the conversation we had about, the short break, et cetera, between classes. That for each class there will be some in the morning. There will be some online time with the teacher, but there might also be some time in that block of 45 or 50 minutes or whatever it is, where they might be doing some work on their own, sort of with the teacher still sort of engaged and online with them. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, good. One question I had, and maybe we talked about this last full school committee meeting and I missed it, but are the teachers going to be at home or are they going to be in the school classroom?
So that's what we're going to have to work out with the Teachers Union Association. We'll absolutely have to work that out. I see a lot of benefits to having teachers in a place where their peers are there, supporting each other, answering questions, maybe even just like, oh, how did you do this? What did we do there? The opportunity to talk to different specialists in terms of concerns you might have with a student, they're right there in the building.
Right.
It was easier for the principal to walk around and to interact with groups of people as well. So, I mean, and in some cases, and we certainly have to honor this, some people might have an absolute concern about getting out and exposing themselves to any potential infection threat, because maybe their husband is immunocompromised based on chemotherapy or something. And the last,
right, sure.
You have to honor that and at least have a way for people to make requests to, if we were going to go in the building full time, to work out of their house. And we got to talk about all that, and that's for discussion. So that's why I didn't want to get into that in this document here, because that could be a very sensitive point, and I didn't want to put it out there and
I get it.
And all that.
Yeah, I just wanted to find out what the latest thinking was on that. So I get it.
Yep.
Christina, the other thing I thought I heard Laura say was when she began speaking, that there need to be a lot of clarity about whether something is synchronous versus asynchronous, and that both the teacher be clear about that, and that's also communicated to students and parents.
Would this comment, Bob Imber, I just put a comment in on the schedule that says maybe clarification that during the class periods that teachers will be instructing in some way, whether it's in small groups or whole large group instruction. So then I think families would know. I guess the teacher would have to let the kids know at the beginning of the class period, today we're doing 10 minutes of this, and then things like every period, kids would be logging on for initial meet and greet, and then teacher would then say, today we're going to blah, 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 blah. You guys are going to stay with me. The rest of you are going to work on this item, this sheet that you picked up at the school or this packet, and I'll see you tomorrow or something. I'm not sure if that's the intention, but that's how I'm sort of reading it.
I'm not sure if that's what I thought I heard Laura saying, but I'll let her address her own issue.
So what I'll say is, Bob, Laura, Christina, anybody here, Deidre, anybody can highlight some text and add your own comment in there. So Christina's trying to summarize here and make my life a little easier, so I don't have to write this and talk. If you guys can add that in there wherever you would like, wherever you want. Just highlight some words, throw a comment off to the side, and we'll be able to respond to those at our next meeting.
Yeah, and I guess in my picture of how this is happening is that I'm seeing it as synchronous, at least through 11:50. That's how I'm seeing it for kids. But doesn't mean that all kids will be on during that time, but that the teacher, I guess, is doing it during. But I could be wrong in my read of that.
I think the expectation is that when we say that in the morning that a kid is coming in for this particular course, whether it's in any of the grade levels, that there will be synchronous learning happening during that time period. We're not setting an expectation of must be 15 or 20 or 50 minutes, but synchronous learning will start. The kids will interact with the teacher, and then based on the lesson or where they're at that day or the class makeup, there could be breakout groups, there could be small groups, there could be asynchronous learning that then happens. Like, I want you now to do your writing on this, and get back to me. And, it could be any of those things, but there will be synchronous learning. That is absolutely the expectation.
So I'm going to clarify that all learning begins synchronous at the beginning of a period, but then and this could be part of the explanation, but then it could become all those different things you just described.
Yep.
But it is the check-in, especially because you said we have to do attendance, or they have to do attendance.
Yes,
check
they
in.
do.
Yeah.
Period attendance in the high school. In the other grades, it's more of a daily attendance, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So the messier this document gets, I think, the better. That's our way of interacting on this, and we'll talk about the answers when we get back together. If I scroll down further, there's a bunch of different expectations for online classes. There's some here that are more high school specific because there'll be more involvement. Some of these we haven't responded to yet. So one of the groups at the high school just put all the bullets in, for instance. That just happened later today. So I haven't had a chance to even go through those and respond on the other side. So the originator of this document just says WRSD, not copy. And I know who put this in, and I'd respond to them directly. I didn't want you guys involved in all that stuff. So they've added in dress code here for online learning. What happens if there's no internet access due to a power outage? All that's brand new as of today. So this is what I also mean by this is pretty drafty. Eventually, so you're aware, I'll read through all of this and provide a single voice, an overview. So right now, if something's choppy or I'll get in later. If there's different fonts and that's driving you nuts, I'll get in later and do all that. Department of Education, I'm on the top of page 9 now. They're telling us we have to make a much more concerted effort to reach out to families. So this is the beginning of that family engagement part, and I could certainly use some help here in adding some parts to this, but at least this gets us going. There's some words here to respond to and get us kind of going. Parents ask for a couple of things, as you guys have already shared with me. One of those is, if I'm going to help my kid, I got to know, what's the expectation for this lesson? And that's way up at the top of where page 1, bottom of page 1 is. We have to let them know what the expectation, what's the goal for the lesson. Parents also ask, I need to see where the assignments are, because my kid's saying, I don't know when this is due. I thought it was due, next week. So this is to not only share with students, but to have something available for parents to be able to see where these lessons are. And that's what we're trying to get at here as well in that. Special ed services, I'm waiting for Christine Smith to get back from her vacation so we can go through this. So this will probably expand the support services for special education, but right now, that's sort of the guts of it. Those bullets that are in there are directly from Department of Education, along with some other words that are in here. We have to meet the services of all students' IEPs, and I feel it's important for us to say that. However, and this is also from Department of Ed, learning is different now. Therefore, the way we meet the expectations under the IEP will be different. So, those are the two big ones in there. Go ahead.
No, I just was saying, that's just interesting. I'm listening. Go ahead.
I'd like to jump in for a second about the parent engagement, just because it's something I'm thinking about in my own practice. Because I think this is a really important part of making this work and making it work well. If we think back to the spring, it was almost like stay away from the parents, partly because we didn't know what the heck was going on. We didn't know we didn't know what families were facing in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have a better handle, although cases are still rising, but I think people have practices in place, and I'm not I was afraid to contact parents. I didn't know what was happening in their house, but I think that we probably were able to do that. I'm wondering if, parents' mode of communication is often email, because that's what we had. Maybe an openness to teachers and parents being able to have some time to meet like this in a Google Meet type forum, where you can have that face-to-face time with the teacher, so you can actually meet them and get to know them. And I imagine this will probably be something you talk about in your negotiations. Probably parent-teacher conferences, open houses are off the grid right now. So I think it's really important, especially in the beginning of our school year, that in our district there is something where parents reach out and there's some FaceTime it can be like where parents can't chime in if that's how teachers feel most comfortable, but really where they need to see something from each teacher. I'm not going to know what these people look like. I want to know what they look like so that it humanizes them. It makes me able to reach out to them, and it will just make it better for everyone. It also will open the communication, lines of communication, so when things are not going well, like the Google Calendar doesn't get updated, I would feel comfortable saying, hey, Linda, could you please update that Google Calendar? Because I know she's a nice lady and she's invested in my kids' well-being. So I just put something in the comment just about, can we think about something like that for, maybe that's part of that PD, those 10 PD days, that there's a day spent on teachers brainstorming ways to engage parents, and because it will come best from the staff. They'll know what will work for them and what will hopefully work for us as parents and community members. And I think that will go a long way in getting some buy-in from some of our constituents who are sending us messages about not being happy with the decision for that we made last night.
Right. I agree with that completely. Yes. There needs to be some direct connection to the teachers for the parents.
I'm loving all of that. That's great. That's a great idea.
Even the principals in the building, and thinking about parent and community engagement and the students having the class meetings, I don't know how many people Google Meet can accommodate, but having the kids go on maybe during one of those activity periods or other things where they have a class meeting and they get to, where the assistant principal talks to them about these expectations, those kinds of things. I don't know.
So I was going to kind of say along that lines too, is that I don't think that things like orientation and open houses should be off the table. I think that they should just be moved to an online format.
I completely agree with that as well.
Yeah. I mean, so
that's what I meant. Yeah, off the table, like
on the table, like in a physical table.
Well, right. Yes.
I think it's actually more important for those things to happen. So I'm thinking of my my high schoolers freshman first day, was all the freshmen went into the cafeteria and they met the principals, and they met the, all the administration, and they were told this is our expectations and all of that. That was happening that first day, that first period. That's where all freshmen went. They had an orientation, and I think that could be moved online and have all freshmen be be required to attend that. And the parents could be invited to that. Like, why not? If it's something like that. And then going all the way back, I'm thinking of all the transitions. Now my son, kindergarten, didn't have kindergarten orientation this year. He's going into kindergarten this fall. Okay. So we have not met a single kindergarten teacher. We have not met a single principal. We have not met anyone. So as a parent who is probably, as any kindergarten parent usually are, they're freaking out. They're freaking out, And then the transition also for the high school, from, middle school to high school, elementary to middle, like any of those times where you would normally have those orientation things, I think they should be done. They can be done on Google Meet with everybody together. And I think they need to think about that. And I know there's not a lot of time, but the principal has the speech ready. He said it last year.
I think it's such a great point, Deirdre. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about Google Classroom has that component where parents are enrolled in the classes. So that's a way to get that initial. But to hear her talking about the kindergarten, and I know because we don't really know what's going on, but now we have more of an idea. I think that's really important. That I'm sure principals are already thinking about those things that Deirdre just brought up. And I see, Deirdre, I think I cut you off. Are you done? Okay.
Yeah,
and so I saw, okay. And I thank you.
Can I just respond to Deirdre? We just met today with the elementary principals, and the whole kindergarten thing absolutely came up. So we still need to figure this out. We still need to talk to our teachers. There is a desire to be able to have something occur during these 10 days other than just PD, and maybe it's a way for teachers to connect directly with parents, with kids. We still need to do kindergarten screening, and we could combine, this is one of the ideas from the principals themselves, we could combine an orientation, a personalized orientation with the screening time that we're doing. And
Okay.
you're absolutely right. We have time, but it's like, hey, we got to get this done. Let's figure it out by next week, guys, because then we're putting it in play, and it's that type of thing. So
Yeah.
everybody's feeling a little stressed on that end.
I just want to recognize, and I missed this, I'm sorry. Welcome, Sherry, that just for the viewing public, that Sherry Haber has joined the meeting. She joined probably around 20 minutes ago. So welcome, Sherry, just so the public knows you're here. And so welcome. Welcome. And Laura, you are, and Sherry, you figured out that we're in a document. Do you have that in your email that you're looking at? Okay.
Yes, I have it.
Okay. And then Laura, you have a comment.
Yeah, so I appreciate all the work that the administration is doing, and we could go on and on picking out this one document, and I want to be mindful of everybody's time here. So I'm gonna ask our moderator, our chair, to make sure that we are using our time effectively here, so that otherwise we could just continue to go on and on and on about all these little, points about this. But I really want to make sure that we don't overburden our administrators right now, because their time is extremely valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed part of what you said because I accidentally hit the hang up button, but I think, so I looked for a minute, but I think that you were saying we have so much to give, right? That's what you were saying, so much to give and so little time. And I know Bob is just about at the end of the document. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to highlight. I think that Laura's saying, let's move on. So is there anything in a nice way?
The only thing I would say as we get to the end of this document, the others are similar to this. I'll share out a preschool one with you guys shortly. That one is very different, and we might not have much say in it, just simply because it's the way it goes. So I might or I might not share that with everybody. That's one of the few that it's like, hey, I'd like to see this change. Well, we can't do that. It's more along those lines. The end of the document, there's some language in there around meals. We're purposely a little bit non-specific in there. I've met with both the head of our CAF and business manager, and we're working out a plan now. A lot of that has to do with how we're going to serve the communities initially. We'll still be providing food, and then students will have the opportunity to come into school if they want to participate in lunch. So we're trying to figure out how that could work. And on top of that, because this might have some financial implications, we're trying to move to a way where they can order meals remotely and pay for them remotely, so they're not having to come in and deal with all this interactions with people. And that makes pickups just that, a pickup. Drive up, here's the food, and they're gone. So that's something that's coming up, and that's something we could present to you, or maybe we'll find a way to pay for it internally. I'm not quite sure yet, but we're right at the cusp of being able to give you more information on that. And that's coming out of this document, which is a good thing.
Okay, so thank you for that. So we have at least the 3 documents. That's probably enough for us, unless you wanted us to do the ECC. But I know, like you're saying, that Jesse, the guidelines for that they're different than here. So we have a little homework if you're interested in it. And again, it's going through the documents, providing some commentary on the side, and then Bob and Brendan would address these things. And it would only, if you have time to do this, it would only help them make the document stronger for presentation to the full committee. So I do suggest, if you have the time to look through them and offer the great comments that I know you have in you. So we're at, does anyone have any questions about that or the procedure?
What deadline do we need to meet to get those to you in a timely manner?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I will be pulling together what gets shared with the full school committee. I can make changes as, if it's something simple like, could you rephrase this and it makes a lot of sense, I'll just make changes as we go. If you have specific questions, why is this here, or why aren't we thinking of that? That might not be reflected in the school committee document. And I think what will end up happening with the school committee as a whole, we will let them know that this is a draft as of this point in time. And I think we absolutely have to qualify for everybody. Pending final changes still could be made pending negotiations. So even what gets voted on would be, at this point in time, yeah, we like where this is going, but aspects of this could get modified down the road.
Okay.
So is there a deadline? I'd like to be able to have a discussion at our next meeting, which is on Monday, before the school committee, and that might prime us for the full school committee. If there's some general changes, I'll make those on the fly and get that ready for the packet on Monday for everybody, for the full school committee. But if it's more substantial, we'll want to discuss it.
Okay.
How's that for a non-answer?
Well, I'll try to get you something by Sunday night. How about that?
Perfect.
Yeah. So bottom line, yesterday is when the deadline.
Laura, you got those good ears.
Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions about this or procedure for this? Thank you for your work on this and for sharing it. I'm looking forward to going through them and offering comments and seeing what's there. So that was our old business that we took out of order. So we're back at the point where we could go through policies. It's 8:05. And for some of us, we've been here since 6:30. Some of us, other times, the dog is in the back way. Brendan's dog is wagging his tail because he knows we're about to maybe end, and he's so excited. You guys want to continue on and look at a policy or two, or are you ready to call it a night? Because then you could have some time to look at these documents before bed, if you want some bedtime reading. Does anyone have a desire to, at this moment? I'll either take, someone can say motion to adjourn, or we could do policy.
I would ask Bob if
Yes.
I would ask Bob if there's any that he needs us to move on tonight in order to be able to move forward with negotiations or any other business that's imperative and timely.
All right. I agree.
Good question.
So there's one that says policy 3813, audio, video, and stenographic recordings of meetings.
Yeah.
And essentially that says we prohibit the recording of meetings. Maybe we could talk about that quickly, and maybe we could just take some action to postpone that until we get out of this whole thing, because that would have a direct impact on this whole plan we got out here, you know?
Okay. So we should open the policy, take a look at it real quickly. If you guys want to go, if you go to your agenda, or Bob, do you want to project it for us, or Brenda?
Yeah.
That would probably be the easiest.
Yeah.
Give me a minute here. I'll go get it and throw it up there.
And while Bob's getting that, I'll just remind everyone that our choices from Mass that they gave us were to suspend, modify, update, or create. So this policy administration seems, I mean, we'll take a look at it, but I think Bob just said possibly suspend. And if we end up needing to create something new after policy, we can, after you do negotiations or this plan, we could do that, I think.
So my concern about suspending, does that mean that essentially there is no policy and people can record parent-teacher conferences and team meetings because we don't have a policy? We've kind of deleted, and I'm feeling like suspending is like deleting it, saying it, you know, are you suggesting that we just suspend it until we've got the plans that we just looked at down?
I think, yeah. Let's take a look at it and see what it actually says, and then we can answer your question, Deirdre, about what would it allow.
I pulled it up and started reading it, and I saw a red flag in the first sentence. So,
so good. I'm just passively waiting for Bob to do it.
There we go.
In my notes, I have some information. I have some wording that I had written down. I just want to make sure before I make a motion.
Audio, video. Okay.
Stenographic. Does anyone know how to do that anymore?
So we had decided, I think, at the last meeting, because we have it up on the screen, that we didn't need to read it for the public. Is that correct, everyone? Like, because they can view that, they can see this, I think, or look up if the public is watching the meeting, rebroadcast policy. If you want to look it up online at wrsd.net, it's P3813. And that will bring you to the policy audio, video, and or stenographic recording of meetings. And we are looking to see suspend, modify, update, create. And Bob, would you like to walk us through, like you usually do with this?
What I was concerned about, and I didn't know, and this is what I wanted the committee to be able to look at, it's the word prohibits here. And I don't know if this would prohibit us from doing anything we're talking about here. So in some cases, I don't know if this is just, and you feel this is comfortable enough just being with parent-teacher conferences and teacher meetings, or if you feel this would prohibit us from recording of meetings as in the title up here. So if it's confusing at all, that's what I wanted us to be able to discuss.
I think that it's pretty clear that it's limited to parent-teacher conferences and team meetings. I think that's fairly straightforward here. And the title could be a bit more specific. We could amend the title, but
Absolutely.
But otherwise, you know, unless we have changed our minds since 2004 about this, I would just change the title and I think leave it as is. I mean, I just saw Bob's hand raised, so anyway. Christina, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay. It just says, are you talking? Yes. I just want to acknowledge that Megan from WREA is just reminding us that they'll probably have the plans that you guys will be talking about. Administration and WREA will probably discuss recording as part of their negotiations. Amber has his hand raised and Laura has her hand raised. Okay, Bob, Amber.
Well, the only thing that I saw that might be a concern is team meetings, if that's referring to special needs meetings where there needs to be video conferencing so that people can have those meetings remotely. And if that's the case, then maybe we can modify the language a little bit.
But I think that the conversation, I mean, the connection of video recording. So what we're doing right here is recording this video conference, okay? But when you're on Zoom or Google, whatever, it actually tells you this meeting is being recorded. You know, it'll tell you. And the person is supposed to, that's kind of an opt-in, opt-out. And I think what we're saying is that if you meet with your team or you meet with your parent, I mean, if the parents meet with their teachers, they are not to record those meetings. And they're not to record team meetings, even though they're video.
Right. Unless
You
they
know,
unless they go through the process in the second paragraph and request it in writing 3 days before the meeting.
Except for the process of writing, right? Exactly. Except, but I think that, so it's not just the video part, it's the video recording.
Right, it's the recording.
I actually think this is a perfectly fine policy then.
Yeah.
And if anything, you would, I personally would not want to suspend it. And I think that it says even to parents, gee, you can't just go and start recording meetings. That's not okay.
I agree.
Could I ask if we could modify the title?
Sure. I move that we amend
To take
the
out
title.
the stenographic, is that what you would, is that the modification that you would?
That could be one change.
I think it should be audio, video, and/or stenographic recording of parent-teacher conferences and/or team meetings.
I have a really bad connection. Did you guys?
Uh-oh.
No.
Type it in the chat, and then she can read it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I just took parent-teacher conferences and/or team meetings from the second line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't need the word meetings because it's already there. So it's just parent-teacher conferences and/or team.
And I would actually
moving to amend. You're moving to amend the title.
Correct.
You guys, when that was going on, my computer froze, so I missed all the stuff that you said. I just heard type it in the chat and movement to amend. So there was, I'm imagining there was a motion that someone made to modify the title. That's my guess.
Yes,
And
I did. Can you hear me, Christina?
I can hear you now. Everything seems back to normal.
Okay.
So
Except
what
for
was
me.
your motion?
Yeah, no. So I made a motion to amend the title so that it says policy relating to education, audio, video, and/or stenographic recording of, and then adding parent-teacher conferences and/or team.
Yes.
The meetings
I
is
think,
already.
I think that sounds fine. I second the motion.
So we're just clear about what the policy is about, which is parent-teacher conferences and team meetings.
So I have a question.
Okay, so discussion.
Yeah.
I guess this is you, Laura.
Yep. So my question, and this is why I had my hand raised. Earlier in the spring, there was a limitation with the teachers in providing FaceTime. So I was under the impression, and maybe my impression is incorrect, that FaceTime with students was not allowed, and this was one of the reasons why synchronous learning was not happening uniformly across the district. Am I inaccurate in my understanding of that situation?
There were so many different MOAs. It could have been in the very first one we had that there was something like that. I think we then reached there were 3 of them, I think, 3 agreements. So I'm trying to recall the differences.
The reason why I ask is because I'm just wondering if this policy was the policy that created the stumbling block between having face-to-face meetings with students and teachers. And if
Why do you say that, Laura? Do you know that for sure? Was it quoted as the policy that was?
No, I'm trying to find the root of how that language in the memorandum of understanding occurred.
I imagine, just not speaking, knowing, I would think it was just because of matter of circumstance of where we were and the unknowns. It doesn't seem like this policy, because it's parent-teacher conferences or team meetings, would have been the reasoning for that. So, I think the district is having, I hear I think your concern is that will happen again, that there will be, and Bob is shaking his head. No, and I think that goes along with the plan that we just saw, that's not going to be the case, that the district is going, that through negotiation, something else will occur. That's what it sounds like. But I don't think it would be this policy that would have prohibited that from happening.
Thank you.
Bob, would you agree as administrative representative? Okay.
Yes.
So any other discussion?
I just want to make sure. I think we should keep the word stenographic in the title. I don't know if Bob.
Yes, he did.
Okay, good. Because there is a service called Computer Assisted Real-Time Translation, which is sort of a form of stenography, and could be used in something like this. And so I would keep stenographic in there.
Okay.
Oh, Linda, I know what you're thinking. Someone could essentially not record but transcribe.
Correct.
So I'm wondering if we need to add transcription or is that stenographic? Because stenographic to me is the coding, but transcribing is actual real words.
Would you want to make a motion? If we wanted to change wording, would we first adjust our title, or would we do a whole big motion where if we wanted to add transcription, do we do a joint, a bigger motion? What is the idea?
To me, though, that implies that you can't take notes.
No, transcribing is so there are software out there that this entire conversation it's essentially a recording and put it into, like I could do it on my phone right now, text to speech.
Yeah, or Otter AI offers one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a little different than taking notes. Notes are in your own words, unless you can type really fast. Yeah.
That's a good question.
Can you say it again, Bob? I didn't hear you.
I'm thinking that would still be stenographic.
Oh, okay.
I think so. I think so too.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay, so any other discussion of the motion? So the motion is to amend the title of policy P3813 to policy relating to education, audio, video, and or stenographic recording of parent-teacher conferences and team meetings. Did I get that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we will take a roll call vote. So we have Sherry.
Haber, yes.
Yes. Bob.
Imber, yes.
Laura.
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Linda.
Long yes.
Deirdre.
Shapiro, yes.
And then I vote yes as well. So 1, 2, 3. So we all voted yes. So that passes. The motion passes. Okay. Are there any other policies, back to Laura's question, that you would like us to take a look at, Bob, tonight that are the district feels are very timely? They're all timely, but like you need them right away.
Well, give me 1 second, Andrew. I'm just contemplating this one.
What about 3820, Bob? Is that one?
What's the title, Laura?
Observation of ed programs for special needs students.
No, I think we can bring that at another time. I'm trying to get some that maybe would impact the plan directly.
Exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll bring this one forward, and then this is the last one for tonight. It's policy 6260. I'll go grab it. 6260. It's assignments of students to classes. 6260.
Okay.
Let me go grab that one.
Okay, so again, for the viewing public, we are looking at, if you can't see this on your screen, you can go to wrsd.net. We are looking at policy 6260, policy relating to pupil services, assignment of students to classes. Okay, Bob?
Yep, let me find the spot that I'm concerned about. Well, we start here. I'll give there's a couple different spots. Right here's one question. Highest potential. I mean, that's not a big one, but I'm leaving that out there. Here's another section that I had highlighted that I was like, so where I think this might not come into play, if we go hybrid, let's say, and we're trying to bring in a cohort A and a cohort B, let me use the high school, for example. We would probably be scooping 2 towns to come in under cohort A and 3 towns to come in under cohort B, because that way we'd get sort of the families in there. I can't tell you how those classes would be mixed. In terms of elementary schools, if we think of Holden, we might be grabbing some streets in Holden so that we can get kids into different schools about the same amount in cohort A and B. I don't know what that class makeups are going to be. I'm not sure that the composition of classes will be balanced to maximize instructional opportunities. I can't tell you that. I think this is putting us in a tough thing because we're going to have to do that. We're also saying that we're going to balance the classes to do all of these other things here. I can't promise we'd be doing any of that at this time. We're just trying to get half the kids in the building at a time. You know, that's all we're trying to do. So I think this could, if parents are really pushing back, put us in a pretty much of a bind here. And the last one here is, if I go down just a little further, it has to be up to the principal on how they're making up classes, whether they're in person or whether they're remote. There are too many other variables going on at this point in time. And some of that has to do that some parents will be doing strictly remote throughout the whole year. So that might impact our ability to talk about placement as well. Right now, we're just trying to get teachers in rooms that have enough seats and all that, and classes are being limited by the number of seats. So the whole placement thing becomes dominated not by what we would like to do, but by what we have to do based on spaces and those types of things. So those are my concerns under these policies, those 3 areas, and I would be asking you guys if we would consider suspending this until we get out of the COVID thing. I think there's too much here to modify. It's just my personal point of view.
So I don't know if we want to do, so the administration has asked us to consider suspending, so we don't really have a motion yet, but I don't know if anyone wants to make a motion and then we can discuss whether suspension is an option, or how do you want to take this, you guys? What would you like to do?
Well, I'll make a motion. I do have concerns about it, but I'll make a motion just to get this on the table. So.
Okay. So you're going to make a motion
To suspend.
To suspend, and then do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. So now, thank you. So now we'll have an opportunity so we can discuss whether we want to suspend and then take a vote. And if we don't suspend, then we'll go back to one of the other items. Or all right. Linda, would you like to start the discussion?
Well, I saw hand raised before I was, but.
Oh, who was? I didn't. Oh, sorry. I missed the chat. Like I'm missing all this.
No
Okay. And I see Megan had written something at 8:16. Megan, I imagine it was from a previous discussion because that was a little bit ago.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Sorry about that. Bob Imber, is this yes, this was 8:24 and it's 8:26. Okay.
It is, but I would defer first to Linda because she made the motion.
Okay.
So she can speak to the motion and then I'll go.
Okay, so I guess, I mean, I understand your concerns, Bob. I really do. What I see here is that it says that the Wachusett Regional School District shall make every effort. And so to me, what that means is that you'll try your best, or put in a good faith effort to do these things. But it's not an absolute requirement. And I'm just I'm leery of suspending that. I just feel like we don't want to completely give up on trying to do some of this, like worrying about kids, the special education needs, or equitable dispersion of ability groups, etc. I mean, I just hate to give up on all of that, and even though I understand that it's going to be really challenging. And as I said, it says shall make every effort. It doesn't say must or shall. So that's my thought about that.
Thank you. And then we'll hear from Bob Imber, and then Sherry, and then Laura.
And I guess I'd just like to echo those thoughts. I mean, basically, I would be uncomfortable actually modifying any part of the policy. There's plenty of wiggle room in there, and I think we should be making those efforts to try to balance and have classes be as diverse as possible. And, I think everybody gets that we have a pandemic going on and that things may not work out ideally, and not that they ever do. And there's plenty of, towards the bottom of that policy, it's still in the hands of the principal to do what he or she feels is best. So,
right.
And I think we do want parents to have input asking,
yes.
Can you do this or can you do that? And in some cases, it might be a wonderful thing to combine, different kids that are in the same family in certain times or whatever it happens to be. So I don't find really anything offensive, and I don't find anything, I don't personally see anything that would really hamstring the district in an onerous way. So
right.
I'm against suspending and, in fact, modifying. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sherry?
My only concern is that second sentence, the classroom shall provide academic culture so the student has the opportunity to achieve his or her highest potential. I mean, to me, that says that if somebody wants their child in a physical classroom, that because that will help them to achieve their highest potential, they can push for that. And obviously that's not something that we can do.
Okay, thank you. Laura?
So I think that the first statement is a first paragraph is even more timely and appropriate for these measures, that we are doing everything that we can to support an environment that is helping students engage in unfortunately the word safe is not in there, but their highest potential given the circumstances. It also provides an avenue for parents to provide input should their students, as been said, they want to advocate for their student to be in a hybrid model more quickly than others for their needs. So I think that I would, rather than suspend, I would rather affirm this policy, especially during this time.
Great, thank you. Deirdre?
A lot of what I was going to say was just said, actually, and then I agree that I think that this is a policy that actually should be put in the forefront and let parents know that we are going to, shall make every effort, and we are with the highest goal in mind, to reach their highest potential. And I think that with the and then asterisk with the constraints that are going on right now, you know what I mean? But I think that this is a very lofty goal, and we should keep trying to do this, in this time also. So,
Thank you. Anyone else for discussion before we vote? Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Again, the motion we had on the floor was to suspend policy P6260, assignment of students to classes. So we'll be voting on that.
Christina?
So, yes.
Can I just start by amending it, because it sounds like everyone's going to vote the other way?
Could you, I'm sorry, before you do that, could you scroll down to the part that you want to amend, or could Bob scroll down to the part that Sherry wants to amend?
I'm okay with not amending it. I'm just afraid that it is going to, I'm just afraid that because it doesn't say within these circumstances or some little clarifier, that it's going to be something that people would ask for. But I'd rather see it kept intact than to suspend it. So what I'm asking for is to amend the motion to, instead of suspend, to keep.
Okay. Do we have a, so Sherry wants to modify the motion for us to keep policy. Lost the number. Sorry, I just can't.
You need a second.
6260. And do we have a second?
I think if we suspend, if we vote against suspension, we keep it.
Yeah,
that's true.
Okay.
You do. The only thing I might add is if you wanted to make a statement to the full committee, that's what this motion that Sherry's putting forward would do, which is voting to keep this policy, and then we would report this out. After discussion, we voted soundly to keep this policy.
Yeah, I actually like that better. I agree. So I would second Sherry's motion.
Who seconded? I didn't catch the name.
It was either me or Sherry was moved, and it was either me or Bob that seconded. Take your pick.
Okay. Yep.
Was the motion to affirm the policy? Was that was that the language that was used, Sherry?
Yes.
Okay, to affirm the policy.
Affirm is sure. Yes, affirm.
Okay. I'm sorry. Did I just put a word in your mouth? I'm not sure if I did.
It's a good word. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the motion, the amended motion. So now we're voting on the amended motion, right? Like to see if we want to amend it, and then we have to roll call vote, and then we vote on that. Okay. So on the floor right now, and we've had it firsted and seconded, I guess, or made and seconded, would be to affirm policy 6260, assignment of students to classes.
And I'd be comfortable with that.
You would be comfortable with that, is that what you said?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. I don't know why. Okay, so anyone else want to discuss the amendment? Okay, so we'll vote on seeing none, we'll vote on the amendment, which again is to affirm this policy. So this is voting on the amendment, and then we would actually take the vote on whether or not we agree. So you guys like last name. So Haber?
Haber, yes.
Kimber?
Kimber, yes.
Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Shapiro?
Shapiro, yes.
And then I vote yes as well. So that amendment passes, and now I guess we're back to, is there any discussion on the amendment before we take a vote? So now we'll take a vote to affirm policy 6260, policy relating pupil services assignment of students to classes. Again, roll call vote. We have Haber.
Haber, yes.
Kimber.
Kimber, yes.
Kirschenbaum.
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Longbeliel.
Longbeliel, yes.
Shapiro.
Shapiro, yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that motion passes. So we have affirmed policy 6260. So great. Is there anything? So Bob, you said last one for the night, but have you changed your mind? Want to spend more time
I
with
have
us?
not. I have not. And thank you guys for a very productive conversation around that. I'm trying to bring things up, and I want to hear from you. So I really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
That actually too was a really nice conversation about the priorities in the district, and I think we can bring that out when we report back to the school committee. That this was something that all members, were unanimous in the support, and that we were still doing our best, considering the situation, to provide the best for our students. So that's actually a really great way, getting all tearful, a great way to end the night, because that's who we're here for, right? We're here for these students and their families, and that's a beautiful way to end. So before we end, is there anything that, it seems like we're going to have a pretty full meeting on Monday, because we just have the hour and talking about the district reopening plan. Is there any, I have one item of new business, and then I'll ask you, and it's just going to be something we put on the agenda, and it'll just probably sit there for the next meeting. District indicators or something. I think at one point we had on our ed subcommittee agenda, but it's going to be coming back, and that's coming out of management for each committee. Is going to be subcommittee will be looking at what would be markers of high performance for the Wachusett district. So education will be tasked with figuring out 2 to 3 things, measures that we think would be indicative of a high performing district, our district. And then we will give those, each subcommittee will end up giving that to management, and then management will make like compile a list and then bring it sounds like, to full committee to discuss what would be district indicators. So it sounds like a really cool way for us to get these benchmarks for progress and growth for our district. So I'm really looking forward to doing that with you all, probably in September, October, but Bob Berlo and I discussed just getting it on the agenda so we don't forget about it. And we'll move on it. Megan asked us to look at it. I told her, I said, we have to wait a couple weeks because we have all these policies. So, but if she asks again before October, then we'll get on it as soon as she asks us. I'm hoping our September. So that's one item I have for new business. Does anyone else have anything for new business that they want to put on the agenda, just so it's on there for future?
No.
Just going back to the district indicators, I'm hoping that Brendan can continue to think about sort of how we find out how our students are doing post-grad in a real way, not just saying, how are you doing, but in terms of, at one point there were those assessments that were useful. I don't know where the state is, but that let us know either we had a lot of kids who were going to be going to remedial classes at the collegiate level or not. And so if there are those sorts of concrete indicators that are out there, I would really like to know about those and have advice for us in that way, because that's important stuff. And then the second thing, and I don't know if it fits under our new business, or again, it might be a management new business issue, is, again, having very clear, I know Bob Burlow was talking about all of the tasks that need to be accomplished by the district to go back and have students start to show up. And I'm hoping that those are all concretized in some way with clear deadlines for who's going to do it and when they're going to do it. And again, if the district needs to hire some people short term to accomplish those goals, then they start thinking about that and they get somebody on board to take care of those tasks. In a lot of cases, I think that, many people in their own departments can do those things. But I think it's helpful initially to have a very broad checklist of here are all the things that need to be done, and here's who's going to do it, and when are they going to do it by. But either we can do the education piece of that, or maybe management can put that as something that's done district-wide.
And Bob, Ember, you said you wouldn't be in attendance on Monday, right? To share that with the whole committee? Because I think what you just shared is something that would be appropriately shared with the whole committee, and then asking the administration, as you so often do, to get us what do you need so that we can help you. I think that's probably, I don't know if someone decides they want to bring up Bob Ember's sentiment at Monday's meeting, or maybe I'll bring that up there too. I think that's important to go to the whole committee to think about. And
I did mention it at the whole committee at the end of the meeting as well.
It sounded familiar to me. Yeah, it sounded familiar. So,
if I could just suggest something, I think that's really the role for management, and that's where it should be brought up. I really do.
So you're asking me to bring up to management the idea of asking what does the district need to get all of these things rolling, right? All of these this year.
Right, and it's a plan that I think that one of the things the district often needs is whether it's a five-year plan for staffing. or instructional materials or technology or facilities or all of those things. It's a normal planning tool. And in this case, okay, so we have a crisis with the pandemic. We still need that planning tool. It helps guide who's going to do what and when. And it's a normal sort of, I would say, tool that any business or school district, organization, all organizations do something like that, and we often don't have them, and I think that we spin our wheels a lot because of it.
So our goals list and checklist, how are we going to meet these goals? How are we going to get there? How are we going to get this? And this is just so I can make sure I get it right. It's about staffing that we need and about how we're getting kids back into the building. That's what you were talking about as well. If we can get kids back in.
For example, Bob talked about all kinds of things about sanitation stations and there was a long list, and that was one of the rationales for why we couldn't open up right away. There needs to be that long list, but it needs to be codified. It needs to be written down, and then timelines. Then it's who's going to take care of these things and by what time. And that's not our job to make that, but we can oversee that in fact administration has done that planning, because we are responsible for assessing the quality of planning that the superintendent does.
So I will pass that on. Thank you to Megan for our management. I'll ask her to add that into our new business so that we can see it on our next agenda, which I don't know when our next meeting is, but I will do that in some form. So thank you. Any other new business? Okay. So as far as our next meeting, some of you were asking, and the tradition that Bob Ember set for us for so many years was having the lovely Monday meetings right before school committee, which works really well, I think, for a lot of people that have the meetings on those days. And so we will continue with that. And I booked them for us through December. And I gave that list to Rebecca. There were 2 dates, though, that are Tuesdays, just so you know, that are on the school committee. I just went with the dates we had given to us. I hope I used the right calendar, and I asked Rebecca, did I use the right one? And she didn't write back and say no. So, so I think I did. So we will have our meetings 6 to, probably if we're still doing virtual, 6 to 6:50 right before school committee through December. And that's just to let you know for your planning. And I think that is it. If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
Wow, you all want to leave. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we will motion. Oh, we have to roll call vote, don't we? Oh,
Right. Yep.
roll call vote. Okay, so we will. The motion is to adjourn. And Haber,
Haber, yes.
Imber,
Yes.
Kirschenbaum,
Gershonbaum, yes.
Longbalil,
Longbalil, yes.
Shapiro,
Shapiro, yes.
and the chair votes yes. And we are adjourned at 8:45. Have a lovely evening, everyone.
You too. Thank you. Good night.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
everybody.
everyone.
Nice job.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.